leaves are turning, there's a bracing chill in the air.
Plus, there's a whole new crop of female grad students about to put on just enough winter weight to make them needy and vulnerable.
I simply want to fool a girl into thinking this is my apartment so I can nail her once and never have to see her again.
He's a bisexual.
Well, I could have told you that, sweetie. He took you ice skating, for God's sake.
Weird thing is, he was so open about it. You know, hi, I'm a bisexual, like, hi, I'm from Colorado or something.
I don't think you're allowed to be bisexual in Colorado.
A lot of my and your favorite shows, movies, and characters have all been hit with the dreaded, this didn't age well. But what if I told you that they aged exactly how they needed to because we need problematic media? When I started law school, I regularly found myself in a room full of all the other 1Ls listening to some speech meant to impart some wisdom on us. And I don't know if this particular nugget of wisdom stood out to any of my classmates, but it lives with me. In one of those speeches, I remember them saying to us that most people are consumers. They just consume whatever they're told, given, or shown uncritically, and they take it all at face value. Most people read an article or look at something and think they know everything they need to know to form an opinion without any further inquiry because they assume they have the full picture. Whereas law school isn't about learning every law, rule, or case. It's not about knowing everything. It's about teaching us to know what we don't know. Teaching us to be able to look at a set of facts, an article, a problem, or a case, and have an idea of what's missing from the picture we're looking at, or at the very least, that there is something missing and that we need to do further research and critical analysis. And that, my friends, is probably the single most important lesson I ever took from any of those lectures. And it hasn't only stayed with me all these years, it's rung truer and truer as I go through life, because every day it becomes clearer and clearer to me that really do not think critically about shit. And everyone is worse off for it. A current example of this is the immediate outrage Sabrina Carpenter's cover for her new single Man Child is receiving from people who didn't think an inch past woman on the ground holding man's leg, there could be no deeper explanation than selling subservience to men.
I don't know if it's Twitter brain or if it's this younger generation's current anti-sexuality sentiment, but this is being made into something way bigger than it needs to be. Sabrina wrote a song about how difficult it is to find a grown man who acts like one, and announces an album called Man's Best Friend. The art is obviously a play on women being bitches, as is the name Man's Best Friend, and it's also a visualization of a woman in a subservient role, which is often the situation women find themselves unwillingly in. It's satire, and not even the most provocative or evocative form that we've seen in the last 50 years.
The sheer number of times I have found myself explaining the subtext, implications, impact, or deeper meaning of a piece of media only to be met with, it's just a show, it's not that serious, it's just a joke, it's not that deep, you're overthinking it, or some other vapidly incredulous statement that fails to take into consideration the world around us and the fact that our media, art, and entertainment both reflect and influence the world around us is astounding. It's actually through the creation of my second YouTube channel, Olay Pop, where I have a ball making weekly video essays analyzing my favorite TV shows, characters, and movies, that I officially came to the conclusion that a lot of have absolutely no idea what media analysis even is, and thus what I'm doing. And that's a serious problem, because if we don't even know what media analysis is, we damn sure don't know why it's important. So we end up missing valuable teaching and learning opportunities that our problematic media provides in exchange for simply writing it off as this didn't age well, because the average person is just consuming their media on a surface level, taking it at face value and making snapshot judgments without any deeper analysis. So combine that with the fact that they're also choosing not to watch media they believe is morally bad or conflicts with their values in some way because they think the media they consume must be a reflection of their own values, and we arrive at the death of media analysis. Nevertheless, the impacts of propaganda and messaging in media are huge, so we do have to tackle that, and we will. We are going to explore the importance of media analysis, the utility in problematic media, ethical consumerism, moral media consumption, the normalization of bad behaviors and beliefs, the responsibility of creators and consumers, and what I am calling virtue mirroring. And we're going to use some of our favorite shows that didn't age well to do it. And since this whole video is about the death of media analysis, it only makes sense that we start there. So, what is media analysis? Media analysis is the examination of media to understand its message, impact, and role within a broader context. It involves analyzing both the content itself and how it's produced and received. I recently addressed the lack of understanding of media analysis in a video called Why Barney Stinson is Perfectly Flawed on my channel Olay Pop, because this might be news to some of you, but your girl is a How I Met Your Mother stan. If you have never seen the 2005 sitcom, the premise was simple, but the execution was top tier. The protagonist, Ted Mosby, sits his children down at the series outset to tell them the journey of how he met their mother, which mostly consists of the shenanigans between he and his friends, Robin Scherbatsky, Marshall Erickson, Lily Aldrin, and Barney Stinson. I have been watching How I Met Your Mother on an infinite loop since it ended more than a decade ago, because the show is hilarious. And despite whatever moral judgments I make about the characters, I was invested in each and every one of their lives and relationships. Their friendships felt genuine, their heartbreaks felt real, their milestones felt earned, and everything the showrunners did, down to the things I didn't like, is precisely what's given me and millions of other fans endless material to revisit and discuss all these years later. Yet, whenever I make a video analyzing a character from How I Met Your Mother and make note of any of the character's negative traits or make a negative moral judgment about a character, two things happen. When I call Ted Mosby a romantic terrorist, Robin Scherbatsky a pick-me, or Barney Stinson a sexual predator, the responses I get are usually two sides of the same missing the point ass coin. One camp assumes I hate the show because they assume that to love something is to leave it at that. Any further analysis is picking it apart or doing too much. They scream that it's just a show and not that deep because they don't know that we are supposed to analyze the media we consume. The other camp takes the negative judgments I've made about a character to mean that they're not allowed to like that character, and that the show did something wrong by creating that character or writing them to do whatever makes them bad or problematic, because they think the media they consume, the characters they like, are supposed to be a reflection of their own morals and values. Virtue mirroring. That first camp comprises of people who love the show that tell me they feel upset, conflicted, or called out in some way by me pointing out something negative about a character's personality, actions, or morals. That camp usually feels like I'm ruining it for them, destroying their childhood, or breaking their heart in some way. The other camp are people who've never even seen the show, but upon hearing the moral judgments I've made about these fictional characters, they start bragging about their imagined real-life moral superiority because they think never having watched the show and never having liked this problematic show or characters means they are better than the people in the other camp who feel some kind of shame about liking the show or the characters now that it's been brought to their attention that something about them is bad or problematic or not aligned with their real life values in some way. While these camps might think they're not alike, they are actually two sides of the same coin, because both camps, one, have no idea what media analysis is, and two, are practicing what I am calling virtue mirroring. So now that you know what media analysis is, to that second point, what is virtue mirroring? It took me longer than I expected to be able to put into words the phenomena I am trying to critique, because I needed to distinguish it from ethical consumerism and moral media consumption, because both of those things are incredibly necessary within reason. So what I've come up with, yes, your girl, quote me, I coined it, I Googled it, ain't nobody said it, me. So what I have come up with is virtue mirroring, which refers to the specific idea that you cannot enjoy media or characters that don't align with your views or is morally bad or problematic in some way because your media is meant to mirror your own virtues. I'm referring to that fear people have that you're going to point out to them how a character or show is morally bad or advancing something problematic and ruin them for them because they won't be allowed to like it anymore without it meaning something negative about themselves. Whereas ethical consumerism refers to the practice of making purchasing decisions based on ethical considerations, such as the social and environmental impact of products and services. Ethical consumerism is about choosing to buy goods and services from companies that align with one's values and boycotting those that don't. Examples of people practicing ethical consumerism are people who don't shop fast fashion or use AI because of the negative impact on the environment and workers, or Black people boycotting Target for rolling back their DEI policies after making commitments to racial progress and supporting Black communities. Moral media consumption is simply an extension of ethical consumerism, where we try to choose our media based on what aligns with our own views and ethics, and we critically analyze media to determine what the messages and impacts are so we can better determine how to consume and engage with media as to mitigate social harm. It's about being responsible with our media, ensuring that we don't spread and promote harmful ways of thinking and believing, which might require you not to consume certain media altogether, but it doesn't have to. It might just have to change how you need to engage it and analyze it and speak about it. There is a fundamental difference between virtue mirroring, ethical consumerism, and moral media consumption. Also, it's worth saying that virtue mirroring is also not to be confused with virtue signaling. Virtue signaling is about how you try and signal to others what your virtues are. It's an outward process. But virtue mirroring is internal. It's about what you think your media must communicate about you. Let me give you an example that should illustrate the difference between ethical consumerism and moral media consumption from virtue mirroring. J.K. Rowling, the creator of Harry Potter, hates trans people and devotes significant amounts of money, time, and energy to hurting trans people, trans women in particular. Virtue mirroring makes a person believe they can no longer like Harry Potter or even read the books and watch the movies they already own because it would make them appear transphobic by proxy. Whereas practical ethical consumerism wouldn't mean that to support trans people and trans rights, you have to stop liking Harry Potter or indulging in what you already own, but it does mean that you have to stop financially supporting and purchasing Harry Potter products going forward, because you would be financially contributing to J.K. Rowling's war on trans people as she actively funds trans hate groups that have been successful at stripping trans people of rights in the UK.
As a trans person, no one will ever make me hate Harry Potter. Harry Potter was literally one of the first books, like one of the first book series I ever read. It gave me room to exist in a world outside of my own in the midst of such immense trauma that I was experiencing as a child. And it also taught me how to read. And I don't mean just like knowing the words on the page, but like how to read in terms of like getting context and understanding the dialogue and things of that nature. And so it's always fuck J.K. Rowling, and I will never purchase anything as it relates to Harry Potter ever again, because fuck this lady, like she really is nutty. But you will never find me being like, oh my god, I hate Harry Potter.
Virtue mirroring is less about tangible external impact and more about one's personal views, feelings, and what we think our media says about us. Whereas ethical consumerism and moral media consumption are about avoiding tangible real-world harm by not funding it or incentivizing its creation or engaging and promoting it uncritically, which makes it more significant. I say all that to say, what I am critiquing is virtue mirroring, not moral media consumption. Moral media consumption certainly has its place within reason, and I will explain why. It is undeniable that the normalization of problematic ideas, stereotypes, and behaviors in media is a real and serious issue. It is very true that people are influenced, indoctrinated, and covertly fed certain beliefs via the propaganda in media, and that is a very real issue. And thus, it is a legitimate position to take that we should be careful not to incentivize the creation of media that doesn't align with our views through our financial support, or at the very least, engage it critically so that we don't spread, promote, and normalize mess, which is why moral media consumption is necessary. And no one understands that better than today's sponsor, Ground News. I choose to use Ground News when doing my research for productions like these, because not only does their app and website let you compare how the media is framing any given story worldwide and get context on each source, in this particular climate, where everybody is targeting you with clickbait and misinformation, and when it's hard to tell what's even real, what's fake news, and what's just straight up propaganda and maybe even AI, a tool like Ground News is invaluable, especially when I'm researching ethical consumerism. In recent news, OpenAI has won a $200 million contract by the US Department of Defense to develop frontier AI capabilities for national security and warfighting. We can see that over 130 articles have been published on this story, with coverage evenly distributed between the left, center, and right. Comparing coverage is interesting, however, with more left-leaning and center sources highlighting the contract positively as strengthening security, while the right states billion order for OpenAI, Pentagon deals with Musk's arch enemy, creating a dramatic narrative suggesting government favoritism towards Musk's competitors. You can see more stories like this on the Ground News daily briefing page, which summarizes and highlights the breaking news of today. Ground News really can't be beat because it makes it easy for me to make sure that I am not just spewing unsubstantiated mess or being biased and trifling, which is why it was a no-brainer to go with them for today's sponsor. Go to ground.news/Olay or scan the QR code on screen. Ground News is giving my viewers 40% off their unlimited access Vantage plan. This is their best deal of the year, and it will only be available for a limited time, so you better jump on it. Also, Ground News is subscriber funded, so you won't see any of those ads on their website that contribute to sensationalism and clickbait reporting. By subscribing, you're not only getting an amazing resource, but you are supporting their work directly and helping keep media reporting honest. Thank you for sponsoring this video, Ground News. Now back to it. A very important example of why moral media consumption matters is Copaganda. Copaganda refers to media and entertainment designed to manufacture support for authority, police, prosecutors, prisons, and the prison industrial complex by using storytelling, sensationalized stories, if not altogether fabricated news stories, to create positive images of police, prosecutors, and prisons that downplay the horrific realities of these institutions and actors and systemic injustices while vilifying the people who find themselves caught up in the criminal system and those who defend them. Now that you have the definition of Copaganda, you probably already have a million shows coming to mind. Good. That means that you have arrived at proof of the first thing you need to know, which is that the United States of America loves Copaganda. So much, in fact, that it dominates television programming. Not only is Law & Order the longest running primetime franchise in television history, its popularity is no small contributor to the reason crime shows are one of the most watched genres of television, and law enforcement makes up for at least 20 to 30% of all television programming since the 1970s. And while many shows can advance Copaganda without intention, shows like Law & Order do not just happen to advance it. It is their purpose.
Since the original series launched in 1990, the Law & Order franchise has racked up 6 spin-off series for a whopping total of 62 seasons of television and 1,316 episodes so far. In January, the Special Victims Unit will return for a mind-boggling 25th season, Organized Crime will notch its 4th season, and the original series, after having been revived in 2021, will be tallying its 23rd season. Law & Order is so ubiquitous that at any point during the day, you're likely to find a rerun while you're flipping through the channels. Well, I mean, if you had a cable subscription. The people who have those are generally the same ones who own a house they bought for a handjob and a bushel of boysenberries back in the 70s. My point is, Law & Order is an American institution. Right up there with football, unaffordable healthcare, and our penchant for invading Middle Eastern countries for oil. For many viewers, Law & Order is their primary contact point with the criminal legal system, and the show isn't exactly honest or unbiased when it comes to its representation. I don't think it should be controversial to say that Law & Order is a TV show whose express purpose is to honor and celebrate the police.
You know, there is a shared interest in putting bad guys away and having cops, shown in a decent light. I am kind of unabashedly pro law enforcement.
Moreover, not only is media and entertainment littered with Copaganda, the police departments themselves create and finance it, as well as they often act as advisors and consultants to shows like Law & Order and even Narcos. For example, the NYPD spends more than $10 million annually on its propaganda and social media. Ask yourselves, why would NYPD need a dance team? Copaganda. Because even videos like this, where the police are dancing terribly on TV, appearing to make a fool of themselves, serve the purpose of presenting the police as harmless. It's very difficult to associate this kind of image of buffoonery with police brutality and a threat. The role Copaganda has played and continues to play in the miseducation of the public as to how the American criminal system works, how the police function, who they police and why, as well as a host of other beliefs, cannot be understated. I could drown myself in the amount of lies the public has been force-fed about the criminal system. Copaganda is the reason people blame public defenders for plea deals and prison sentences instead of prosecutors and legislators and judges. It's the reason people see defense attorneys as the bad guys and prosecutors as the good guys. It's the reason people see our rights as just technicalities, stopping the police from saving the day. People are unwittingly eating up Copaganda from the moment we are born. It's not just Law & Order, baby. It's from Paw Patrol all the way to Powerpuff Girls, Lucifer, Chip and Dale, and the Goddamn Rescue Rangers. We cannot escape the Copaganda. Yes, you heard me. You heard what shows I listed. What's the Powerpuff Girls? A scientist literally creates 3 little superpowered girls that he then makes work for the mayor by beating the living shit out of anybody the mayor labels a criminal without a shred of due process. The Powerpuff Girls would see Mojo Jojo and beat this down to the white meat on sight for absolutely no reason. Saw him grocery shopping? Him up. See him out in the streets? him up. One time, these bitches broke into jail to Mojo Jojo up. Where is the justice in that? And all the criminals usually happen to be people of color, monkeys, white trash hillbillies, incels, or whores. Y'all better stay woke here. What was Lucifer? Satan, the devil himself, wants to prove to himself and God that he's good. So he goes to Earth and starts working with the LAPD.
Oh my God.
There is literally a storyline where a defense attorney is going to go to hell and she only makes it into heaven by quitting her job, becoming a prosecutor, and dating a cop. Oh, and Lucifer also falls in love with a cop who's supposed to be the epitome of goodness in the show. In the live-action Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, Chip and Dale are trying to catch Peter Pan, who is enslaving former has-been cartoon characters and forcing them to make straight-to-DVD movies. But they are trying to get Peter Pan because the police need their help, because people's pesky civil rights are stopping the police from doing what they need to do. So they need Chip and Dale's help because they won't be stopped by the red tape of our rights. Yeah, that's the actual plot, bro. In Darkwing Duck, Reginald Bushroot is a plant scientist trying to use plants to make healthy shit because Big Pharma and them poison and everybody only concerned about money. And because he's trying to do this good thing, the Big Pharma, I don't know what it is, Big Food, FDA, whatever it is, them wicked ass are trying to stop Bushroot. So they keep with him and destroying his experiments so that he cannot make what he needs to save the world.
I'm not playing. If my research is successful, someday we'll get our nutrition just like plants. We'll be able to snack on sunlight.
There's no money in nutrition. It's not quality people want, it's quantity. You see, bigger food means bigger profits, and bigger profits mean money, money, money.
Did I hear someone mention money?
So when Bushroot ends up becoming basically a plant creature with the power to control plants and saying, the show makes my Bushroot the villain for trying to stop these wicked they actually hire Darkwing Duck to stop him. Okay, the villain is the man trying to give us healthy food. Y'all get that, right? And no, this isn't Copaganda per se, although it kind of is. Darkwing Duck is basically a glorified cop. But what it is for sure is some bullshit, and I just wanted to tell y'all about it. The propaganda be right there, but we be missing it. So yes, there are legitimate reasons not to want to engage media when we realize that it advances problematic ideas, and fear that our support incentivizes the creation of more of this kind of media, thus helping to spread these horrible ideas. You know, supply and demand. And let me just make sure I say, it is also okay not to want to support or watch media that's advancing bullshit you don't believe in just because it's annoying. I promise that I am getting ready to cut Desperate Housewives off in the middle of season 2 as we speak because the conservative propaganda and racism is ridiculous. Oh my God. So I agree with moral media consumption, especially in the case of Copaganda. I also think it's worth mentioning that Copaganda explicitly serves the state in a way that ensures it would exist and be created regardless of our support for it, because the state has a vested interest in manufacturing our consent for their power over us. So it makes more sense to me to lean on media analysis so that we can at least get some utility out of this problematic media as opposed to altogether disengaging from this kind of media. Which is why what people like Skip Intro do on his YouTube channel, where he breaks down the propaganda and beloved media like Law and Order, is so important. The propaganda can feel obvious when we parse it out or have someone else to analyze it for us, but it's very easy to miss because in many ways, it's intended for us to miss it. They are trying to passively indoctrinate us with covert messaging and propaganda. And they know that not only do most of us think everything ain't that deep, most of us are also watching TV to relax and unwind, which is fair. Life is hard. Which reminds me of something T1J said in a severely underrated video he made called Why Stop Making Political Content.
When you take a serious look at the problems of society, it can get really depressing, if not infuriating, especially if you've personally experienced the negative effects of systemic injustice. And sometimes anger is a justified and even appropriate response. Quite often, the things that are the most important are also the least fun. But it can't be good to be sad and angry all the time. I refuse to believe that, and frankly, I refuse to live like that. And that's one of the problems with this evolution of American politics, is that politics is kind of expected to be your life, even if you aren't a content creator. Like, it's good that people are more politically engaged and aware of systemic issues that nobody seemed to talk about before. But I think we've overcorrected for that. Now, every aspect of your existence is expected to be filtered through the lens of politics. You know, a popular brand worked with a trans person. Well, you gotta boycott that brand, obviously. Did your parents vote for Donald Trump? Well, I guess you should stop talking to them forever. I'm not trying to do a both sides are bad argument, by the way. I have progressive liberal politics and I've never been shy about that. My point is that this idea that you can't make any decisions about how to live your basic life without first checking in to see if it's politically allowed is not unique to any political alignment. And it's pretty exhausting.
Ethical consumerism is important. Moral media consumption is important, but we also have to live. It's not necessary that we need to hold it against ourselves or others for consuming and enjoying media that may be in some ways problematic or not altogether representative of our virtues. Virtue mirroring is unnecessary, and I don't think moral media consumption requires that we totally disengage. I think it provides us the option to analyze and discuss media in a way that minimizes the harm. That's why I love doing media analysis of my favorite shows on Illuminati Pop, where I can appreciate them for the ways that they are great and critically analyze the bad so that we make sure we are not just internalizing nonsense. I loved the Powerpuff Girls since I was a kid, and I still love them bitches. I just now know that those bitches were state-sanctioned terrorists, okay? Glorified super police, released onto the people of Townsville to brutalize people just like the police do and destroy the town and endanger others in the process, just like police do. And that's dope to be able to see how our real life and trend supportive police shows up even in our cartoons and places we least expected, and to be able to use those depictions to teach people about these real issues.
I've had this conversation a lot in the past, specifically around Euphoria, because I talked a lot about the fact that it made me uncomfortable that Drake, with all of his allegations, was an executive producer of the show. I was not saying like, hey, you shouldn't watch Euphoria because Drake, like when I watch a show, I like to like look at all the things that make up the show, like how the show is created, who's creating the show, things of that nature. I'm still gonna watch a lot of the shows that are being produced by some bullshit. Like one of my favorite movies is a sci-fi film that was fucking created by Harvey Weinstein. If it come on, I'm gonna watch it. It's a great movie. But you just have to also like acknowledge that these are the conditions under which like the film is created or that the show is created, and that's okay to name.
Virtue mirroring can make it difficult to see the value in problematic characters, plots, and storylines, whether they reflect the real world we're living in or not, because we think our media is supposed to reflect us, say something about us, and only depict the world we want to live in, not the one that we do. I believe that there not only can be room for both depictions of the world we want to live in and the world we do live in, I think there must be. We've become so politically conscious that we've created this kind of hostile social environment, especially on the internet, where it feels like everything is a litmus test and you're expected to denounce, abandon, and shit on any and everything that could be called problematic, to the point that people break into hives at the first sight of media analysis because they're scared to death that it means they're going to have to denounce, cancel, or get rid of something they love. Which is why so many How I Met Your Mother fans cling to this fan theory that maybe Barney wasn't that bad and Ted just tells the stories like that to make him look bad, because that theory is what people come up with when they cannot reconcile the fact that the Predator is also their favorite character on the show. Barney was an iconic, hilarious, charismatic, entertaining, well-dressed, surprisingly generally good friend, and misogynist predator. We do not need a theory to absolve Barney. We are allowed to call a spade, know what he is, and still with the character and the show. Virtue mirroring is unnecessary. We do not have to abandon How I Met Your Mother or Barney Stinson because they don't necessarily align with our views, but we do need to recognize what he is and why certain things either do not or should not align with our views. Moreover, media and entertainment serve as historical records, proof of what was going on in the world at the time, how people thought and behaved. We need media to reflect the world that we are living in all its problematic glory, because we need to know our history so we know either how not to repeat it or how to tackle it. The Sex and the City has a bunch of different moments where they are transphobic, they are yes, racist, and all these different things. And let me tell you why I love that it's like that, because these bitches have tried their best. If you didn't know better because of how white rich ladies are, you would have no idea. You don't know who the president is when Sex and the City's happening. You don't know what the political stuff is happening or whatever, anything, because they don't never talk about it. But when that shit happens, you know what the times are. You know, you immediately know what the larger infrastructure is, and it reminds you of who these bitches are. I never in my life become some. I love Sex and the City, but you'll never see me like acting like, oh my God, Samantha, that's my favorite. I want to hang with Samantha. Samantha's the minute a black woman come around, the microaggressions come out, and you need that reminder of who they are, what the times are. It's that you can see these white bitches that you think you love and you think they relate to you and X, Y, Z, or whatever, but don't ever get it twisted. And that's why I appreciate that element of those things.
I actually really love, Olay, that you brought up Sex and the City. I recently rewatched that. I was one of those kids who snuck off when my mom was asleep as a kid and watched Sex and the City because she forbade us from watching that as a kid. And I was like, girl, you said no, so now I'm definitely gonna do it.
That's me, Degrassi, and self-hurt.
So like I snuck off to watch it late at night as a kid. So I've seen all the seasons, but my partner has not. My partner is a trans mask person, and they had never seen Sex and the City. So I was like, "Oh, babe, like let's get into this." Some of like the transphobic scenes came up, and they were like, we both laughed at it. Both of us being trans, we both laughed at it because they were like, "That is so 2000s. Like it's so early 2000s that like."
Yeah.
I actually would be disappointed if I didn't see that in this point because everything that was being produced in that moment was just so ridiculously racist, transphobic, homophobic, like even down to Carrie having her, lapdog gay best friend who she used and abused throughout the entirety of their relationship.
I look at media not aging well as a good thing. Proof of progress that we can now see the error in our ways and that we have a society where we can better hear the dissenters. Because please know that everything that makes a piece of media problematic by today's standards was problematic then. The majority just either could not see that or couldn't hear the minority telling them about it. Moral media consumption dictates that we critically analyze the media consumed so that we can mitigate the harm by parsing out the lessons, identifying problematic elements, and using them to critique or illustrate problematic societal attitudes and phenomena. Like, for example, rape culture, which brings me back to How I Met Your Mother, Barney, Stinson, and the utility of problematic media that didn't age well, specifically because we get to see and understand why those things didn't age well. For as many people that love How I Met Your Mother, there are just as many people screaming about how it didn't age well. And that's owed in large part to How I Met Your Mother's rampant sexism and celebration of rape culture, although there's also the occasional transphobia, racism, fatphobia, all the things. The credit for much of How I Met Your Mother's reputation in this regard is owed primarily, but not exclusively, certainly not exclusively, to the most iconic and recognizable character from the show, Barney Stinson, who spends the majority of the show's run spewing misogynistic mantras about women and preying on drunk, vulnerable women who he manipulates into sex through nefarious means. Yet, I received many comments from people refusing to see Barney as the predator he very explicitly was because they practice virtue mirroring and thus could not reconcile their favorite character being a predator, so they chose instead to convince themselves he's not. But one comment in particular stood out to me. A man left me a comment saying he liked my How I Met Your Mother videos, but he has to stop watching them because I keep calling Barney Stinson a predator when he is just engaging in very normal bar culture.
Well, excuse the fuck out of me.
And as I explained in my Barney video, that is precisely the problem. The fact that you are a regular witness to rape culture because it's so commonplace does not make it any less rape or predatory. It just proves how pervasive the problem is and how far we are from solving it. When men watch a character who is explicitly preying on drunk women, lying, manipulating, and deceiving them into sex, regularly filming and photographing women without their consent, and has even admitted to selling a woman and go, yep, this is fine. So, what is rape culture? Rape culture refers to the idea that rape and sexual abuse are commonplace and normalized in our communities, as well as media and entertainment, as a result of the community's attitudes and misunderstandings about gender, sexuality, gender roles, and sex. In other words, intentionally picking the drunkest women to try to have sex with because you know that drunk women are not in their full right state of mind, so they're more likely to sleep with you, is literally a predator and rape culture on display. You are literally preying on vulnerable women, which Barney says throughout the show are his favorite women, which is also a core element of all of Barney and Ted's wingman activities, trying to find the most vulnerable women to lie to and manipulate into sex, which is rape by deception. Rape law is a complex thing that has been slow to evolve to reflect modern understandings of rape, because most rape law was not designed to protect victims. For example, for most of American history, men legally could rape their wives because the misogynistic understanding for the law was that women belonged to their husbands, owe them sex, and thus could not technically refuse it. In Maryland, rape used to mean sex by physical force or threat of physical force. And what that used to mean was that victims who were threatened or forced any other way but physically would have their claims dismissed. And that was an upgrade from older definitions of rape that defined rape as sex by force without consent and the utmost resistance, which basically meant that victims had to physically fight off their attackers for it to be considered rape, which of course would expose them to more danger and a greater likelihood of being killed. Many jurisdictions, like New Jersey, have begun changing their rape laws to protect victims by recognizing the range of tactics used to force people into sex. New Jersey now has affirmative consent, which means that in order for you to have consent to have sex, it's not sufficient that a person didn't say no or stop. They need to have affirmatively said yes and given consent. New York has expanded its definition of rape to include forcible compulsion, and many other states and countries have begun recognizing rape by deception, which is where someone gains sexual access through fraud or misrepresentation. Specific examples are lying, impersonating other people, and medical fraud. Now, let's talk about Barney's playbook, shall we?
This, my friends, is the playbook. The playbook contains every scam, con, gambit, flim-flam, stratagem, and bamboozle I've ever used or ever hope to use to pick up chicks and give them the biz. From basic moves like the don't drink that. Ooh, don't drink that. I saw some guy slip something in there.
What? Who?
That guy.
Thank you.
To more advanced maneuvers, like the Mrs. Stinsfire.
We have been assigned a new house mom. I'd like you to meet Mrs. Stinsfire.
Girls! I got left at the altar.
Really? A genie comes out of it?
Only if you rub it hard enough.
Can I help you?
I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but my wife is having an affair with your husband. I even found a list of every dirty way they've enjoyed each other's bodies. I wish there was some way we could get back at them.
There is. We can kill them.
Throughout most of the series, Barney is on the tireless pursuit of manipulating women into sex through nefarious means, hundreds of women at that. It's known that Barney records and takes photos of all the women he sleeps with without their consent and gets scrapbooks made of them. He literally sold a woman. The show makes a joke of Barney being repeatedly sued for his predatory shit and beating the suits. In the episode Rebound Bros, Barney wants Robin's help training Randy to be a wingman, and when she declines, he threatens to leak a sex tape of them. In How I Met Your Mother, rape culture is constantly on display to a laugh track. And although the show does acknowledge Barney as a predator, the show makes little to no effort to drive home how bad this behavior is. It's played for laughs. In fact, the man who created the show wrote the women characters, Lily and Robin, to help justify the predatory behavior of Barney and also Ted by repeating misogynistic tropes about how women are stupid and deserving of what they get if they fall for these manipulation tactics.
Look, if these girls are dumb enough to fall for this crap, they have it coming.
Which is problematic, yes. But it's also precisely how rape culture functions in real life. So it provides us ample examples to illustrate exactly how rape culture functions in real life and how people like Barney Stinson get away with their behavior because they are affirmed by the people around them who believe in these misogynistic and predatory understandings of women, sex, and consent. And as someone who has found myself continuously trying to find new ways to make people understand rape culture, like I did in my video, How Men Become Aziz Ansari, that you should watch after this if you haven't seen it. The problematic nature of How I Met Your Mother is useful to me. It allows me to easily show people what rape culture is, which many people struggle to understand in the abstract when you try to explain it to them. Nevertheless, the creators and writers of How I Met Your Mother are not off the hook simply because I find utility in problematic portrayals of Barney and rape culture throughout How I Met Your Mother. Shows try to create they create a bad character, but they also, in some ways, they turn that badness into something to admire and celebrate. Like they make it cool, they make it this. And while it can be entertaining, without healthy media analysis, what happens is people just think it's okay.
Right.
People are, Barney Stinson on How I Met Your Mother is a predator, he's a rapist, he literally is. And you have all these men going on buying the playbook, was confidently, shamelessly telling me that they did tactics that Barney did is obviously rape, rape by deception. and sexual coercion because the show is playing it for laughs. You know what I mean? Like, it's playing it for laughs. And so even though I appreciate the utility in this just representation of rape culture, because that is how it happens in real life. These things are just played for laughs. Everybody around and endorses it, encourages XYZ.
That's true.
But at the same time, without healthy media analysis to point that out, especially in a culture that like sees media analysis as hating, you know what I mean? I assume you don't like it or something, like it becomes destructive.
Yeah.
Because I love How I Met Your Mother. I wouldn't want it to change. I love it. I enjoyed it. I think like it can be helpful, but it's a problem if the entire zeitgeist for all these people that love How I Met Your Mother is I love it. Therefore, I cannot analyze. I cannot critically analyze it. When critical analysis is necessary to make it okay, because without the utility in this problematic representation, what is it? It's just an affirmation. I don't think it's a normalization because I think this is already it reflects the culture. I think this is already the case, but I think it affirms it. If without this media analysis, like structure to go along with it, that says, hey, look at what it's doing.
Yeah.
It's showing you rape culture. You can enjoy it. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. You can't love it. You can't love the characters. You can't get it, but you should engage with a thoughtful analysis. And so many people have an aversion to thoughtful analysis. While I don't necessarily think it's incumbent on creators to write characters who are model citizens, as well as I think it's necessary that we have characters, plots, and storylines that mirror the problematic realities of our time, because our media should reflect our lived experience, because our media becomes history, evidence of the times, and we know that those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. So it's a mistake to do away with problematic portrayals in media. Creators still do bear a responsibility to mitigate harm and to make clear to identify bad behavior as bad, especially where abuse, SA, and predatory practices are concerned. And it seems to me that while there is very much so utility in using How I Met Your Mother as a teaching tool, it could have and likely caused just as much harm in their perpetuation of rape culture and in their celebration of Barney Stinson, who many people have gone on to emulate. For example, the How I Met Your Mother writers repeatedly presented the naked man, a tactic where a man would find an excuse to get into a woman's apartment so that when she'd leave the room, he would get naked in hopes that when she'd return, she would feel pressured to sleep with him, as a joke, despite the fact that it was sexual harassment at minimum. The naked man is sexual coercion. You are attempting to coerce someone to have sex with you by getting into their home under ulterior motives, then getting naked without invitation in hopes that they have sex with you because they otherwise have not indicated a desire to do so. And while one could maybe argue that it was intended as a joke, intent matters less than impact. And I have received comments from men feeling comfortable enough to tell me that they tried the naked man and it worked. They felt comfortable trying it and telling me about it because the show did not present it as a crime or the problematic behavior that it was. And there are a million examples of predatory behavior How I Met Your Mother fed to people all over the world. Which is why, while I think it is perfectly fine for shows to introduce problematic characters, behaviors, and storylines that they intend we love, there is still a responsibility to make clear when predatory, harmful, prejudice, or criminal behavior is concerned. And I'm sure that there are people groaning and squirming because they don't think that there is a way for shit to be spicy, entertaining, or realistic without being cookie cutter and still drive home a message about wrong and right. But you would be wrong. Responsible representation is not the outlandish burden that we think it is, and I think one of the best examples of a show that got this right time after time after time was Degrassi: The Next Generation. Yeah. Bet you didn't expect to hear Degrassi mentioned. When I was a kid, Degrassi played on the end and the commercials would just say, Degrassi, it goes there. Because they went there. Degrassi wasn't scared to explore domestic violence, school shootings, bullying, suicide, rape, homosexuality, homophobia, anorexia, cutting, teenage pregnancy, abortion, mental illness, and everything under the sun. Degrassi knew how to give you a core protagonist that you love, had them do and say horrible shit, but realistic things, and then make that character pay and learn a lesson before letting you love them again without ever absolving them for the shit they did. A perfect example of that is Spinner Mason, one of the most popular main characters from Degrassi. We love Spinner. Most people are not going to spew vitriol at the mere mention of Spinner's name. Yet, during the show, it's Spinner who bullies Marco for being gay, bullies Rick and gets Jimmy shot, as well as he cheats on Darcy, but you know, Darcy. But neither the show nor the audience absolved him of any of that. It was a core part of the show watching Spinner's friends cut him off for being a piece of shit and rooting for it to happen because he deserved it, then watching him have to learn through all of his up beliefs and change. And it never felt like a politically correct lesson anyone was forcing on you. It felt like the natural fallout and growth that comes along with up and being made to understand how and why you fucked up. That's what How I Met Your Mother needed. Barney didn't just need to stop sleeping with other women because he wanted to be with Robin. He needed to understand that what he was doing was wrong, criminally wrong, and unethical. And he needed to understand why, so the viewers could learn the lesson too. You're right too that you is a good example of what I'm talking about in the complete picture, because what I'm saying is essentially like you could have any kind of representation as long as it's coupled with a sensible media analysis. And I think Ken Badgley goes out of his way to force that media, like to force that into the discourse. Like, let me be clear. This guy is bad.
Definitely wants to find true love. No. And do you actually, okay, to be fair to his humanity, because we all need to worry about Joe's humanity more. Yeah, I think he does want to find true love, but he has no effing clue where to find it or how, which is, you know, like a lot of us. And do you think that he's found that with love? No. No. They both kill people, okay? How could that be true love? I don't want to police people's feelings anymore. It's really exhausting.
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna keep murdering. He's gonna keep stalking. He's gonna keep joeing it up, and people are gonna love it.
Love it up.
We're gonna hashtag. We're gonna be here in a year talking about season 3.
Yep.
It was on Lifetime, was how far are you willing to go for love? But I was always like, no, that's not.
Ooh.
That's not what that is.
This is not love. This is not love.
To me, it's like, how far are we willing to go to forgive an evil white man?
And that's the only reason, let me be clear, that's the only reason the U audience, the majority of the U audience is even receptive to the idea, to even recognizing it. Because these are people, and you can tell that based on the way they eat up, what they can see is a misogynist serial killer murdering women or whatever. They can see that. They can see that, but they eat up his narrative. They hate Peach more than they hate him. They hate the women. They hate Beck ain't good, XYZ. That's why it was funny. I saw somebody in my comments on the Learn How to Pop recently say to me when I was kind of explaining this phenomenon with like How I Met Your Mother, they said to me, see, later, like, yeah, that's why I don't like the last season of You. They didn't trust the audience that like we could figure it out. Like this, and I'm like, because you can't. They didn't. They had 4 seasons looking at it and seeing that you didn't get it. That's why the whole 5th season, Bronte is supposed to be the audience. It's supposed to be us who don't get it. That whole season is about the way we could know it. It could come to the light and you still, oh, he's so cute. Oh, da-da-da, tell you something different. Bronte know it. And she's somehow unsure in her brain. That is the audience. Because I'm like, you're affronted. You feel personally offended at them thinking you didn't get it. But they know that. That was what they witnessed back from them as the feedback from the audience for years and years and years.
And they knew it would be the final season.
And I'm glad they did that. They ended it making sure they're like, listen, if maybe these last 4 seasons, if for any reason at all, you are still deluding yourself as to who the bad guy is and what's going on here, we are not only going to make that clear to you in this final season, we're going to make it clear something about you. We are telling you something about how you go about, like, I want you to see yourself as, for every second that you hate this bitch Bronte, that is how you operate. She is you. But where media fails to drive home the lesson, that is the point of media analysis. We have to do the work that the creators don't do. It is okay for us to laugh at and enjoy problematic media, so long as we remember to critically analyze our media and parse the lessons out. Otherwise, we're just eating up shit. Stop what you're doing and listen up. You just watched a video on one of my channels, but the Illuminativerse is huge, and I want to tell you what everything is and how to find it. The Illuminativerse has 6 channels. On the YouTube homepage of any one of those channels, every single channel in the Illuminativerse is featured at the bottom of the page, so you can always easily find them. Okay? Remember I said that. Don't say I ain't tell you how to find it. Subscribe to my main channel, Illuminati, to find my Illuminati productions, which are my long-form video essays, and also all of my backlog of content. Subscribe to my second love child, Illuminati Pop, for my weekly video essays analyzing my favorite TV and movie shows and characters. Illuminati Pop also has its own Patreon where you get all of those videos uncensored. Subscribe to my channel, Olay and Friends, for my podcast, Olay and Friends. New episodes of Olay and Friends come out every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Subscribe to Olay and Chill for new episodes of my podcast, Olay and Chill, every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And also, both Olay and Friends and Olay and Chill are both available on streaming platforms like Spotify. Subscribe to Illuminati Bites if you want my takes, but you don't have an hour to spend. Subscribe to Illuminati Politics for my political analysis and my State of the Union type addresses on my show O Squared. And last but not least, subscribe to my Substack Illuminati for my written work.